Hey, welcome back. I have another video. I'm going to try to get through this one as quick as possible so it doesn't drag on too long. I've recorded it already a couple of times and it's very long. So I'm going to try to speed through this. So bear with me. I want to do this video where I'm just kind of discussing. I wanted to do this video where I could discuss why somebody might start Warhammer Fantasy now and use this as sort of a segue into a series of videos where I talk about each of the armies and how to collect them right now, because I think there's still interest for Warhammer Fantasy, and the only thing that might be hard for some people is figuring out where to start. Why would you be playing Warhammer Fantasy at this point? Well, for some people it's you have models but you don't like Age of Sigmar. I'm sort of in between. I have models. I like Age of Sigmar, but I want to play fantasy. So, you know, getting people to get into fantasy with me sometimes can be difficult, but there are people out there who share that interest in the game. So having an army to play with them is nice. You might have an army already. And if you do, you've already basically got most of this done. But sometimes you need motivation to help you, get out there and get gaming. So hopefully some of this is still helpful for you. And finally, you might be one of the people that left the game, but you're excited for the old world and you want to get back into it preemptively, maybe to start getting ready. Some people are not certain the game is still being produced. That is a reasonable discussion to have based on how long it's been since we've had an update. But I do think it is just because they're focused on other things. I think it's just going to take a bit, like they said. And you also could be one of the people that has been playing Warhammer Total War, and a series of games. They're awesome. They've done so much to revitalize interest in Warhammer Fantasy, and Games Workshop has probably seen that there is money to be made here. I do think Warhammer Total War and Vermintide, as another example, those games have brought people back into fantasy in a way that Games Workshop didn't expect. And with their overall success the last few years, they probably are confident that bringing Warhammer Fantasy back is going to be profitable as well. Where to start? Obviously, you need to pick an edition you want to play. Pick a couple. Make sure you have a couple of choices that you're interested in. Read up what they're like. I will do videos talking about each edition from 6th to 8th edition, although I might just do 6th and 7th together because they're quite similar. I can't really give a lot of information on anything before 6th edition, so I might just point you out to some videos that might be helpful. And I will probably skip, for now at least, the homebrew custom editions like Warhammer Armies Project and the Ninth Age, as I don't play them a lot, if at all. So I'd have to do a little bit more research before I'd be confident in giving sort of a critique on them. But basically have a couple of editions in mind so that you can go out looking for players, knowing that if one isn't that popular in your area, another might be. And just be aware that there are some people that are going to play older editions, and those older editions are called Old Hammer. And there's also Middle Hammer, but Old Hammer is like the 2nd edition to 4th edition crowd. And once you figured out if there's people playing, you also have to make sure they're interested. See if they'll get in for some small games. See if they'll start something with you. Don't just rush out and buy and build and paint a big army just because somebody said, like, oh yeah, I used to play. Like, make sure they're willing to play now. The interest is there, like I've said, but you need to know where to look. And you need to make sure the people that you're talking to are the ones that actually want to play. You can contact local clubs and stores and ask around about who's there, who's playing. Facebook, Reddit, Discord, other places are also a good way to find communities. For example, 6th edition has a Facebook group that's quite large. Now, once you've figured out an edition to play, you need to go and get yourself an army choice. Like you have to go pick something, and there's a few things to consider here. If you have an army, just dig it out. Obviously, that's like the place to start. It might not be designed for the edition that you're going to be playing, so you might have to go get some stuff or like redesign some of the units, bulk some of them up, depending. But for the most part, you'd be pretty good pulling anything out of your attic or your closet, because it'll all pretty much be usable. Then you should go to Games Workshop's website and see what is available under the Age of Sigmar banner. A lot of armies have been removed or gutted, so you need to be aware that if you're starting an army fresh, it might not be feasible to buy Games Workshop minis. So you'll have to find third-party alternatives there, or 3D print something, stuff like that. But there are others that are basically intact. Skaven, Lizardmen, and Daemons, for example. All of those are intact as far as I know. There might be the odd missing character, but that would be about it. Everything else is there. And finally, you're going to need some books. Books are always necessary. There are some ways around that, but I'm not really going to get into that because I don't want to have a discussion in the comments about where to download PDFs and where to find recasters. They're out there. If you look, you'll find it. I just don't want to talk about it. Plus, I really do think when it comes to books, at least, try to get a physical copy. It's just nicer. That's my opinion. I am a physical book kind of guy, but you'll be happy to have a physical book, probably. Anyways, you need a rule book and you need an army book. Those are pretty much two of the most important things to get other than your army, because you have to have access to those rules. Now, the thing about the rule books is you do need to make sure that you get the one you need. Some editions have multiple versions. If you can get a mini rule book and you're happy with just the rules, that's definitely the way to go, because they're going to be the cheapest. It still provides you everything you need to play. But there are options to go with like fancy collector's editions as well. This is just down to preference. Once you have an edition that you want to play picked out, just get the books you need at the prices you can best afford. Then you need tools. You need dice, d6, but also you need scatter dice and misfire dice. One of each is really fine. You need one scatter die. That is literally a die that is 4 arrows and 2 targets. That just means that if an arrow rolls, it's the direction whatever it is going to move. Usually it's going to be like a war machine shot or like a spell, and that'll be going that direction. And the misfire die is whether it blows up in your face or how far it's going to go. So it'll be misfire 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And because it is very simple and it's just a matter of looking at the dice results, you can just use a basic die 6. You do not need a misfire die if you can't find one. Scatter dies are still included in GW products. They're still sold by GW, but misfire dice are not. Just roll a die. On a 1, it's a misfire. A 3 is a 2. A 4 is a 6. A 5 is an 8. And a 6 is a 10. It's as simple as that. You don't need a misfire die. It's just one of those, if you can get one, it's nice. Then you need a tape measure. Don't buy this from GW. Don't buy this from Army Painter or whoever. Just go to your dollar store, go to your local hardware store, and spend like $3-4. You know, if you want to spend like $15, GW, you may as well spend $15 at a hardware store and get something better. It's just my opinion. I've not had good luck with their measuring tapes when I've used them or seen other people using them. And dollar store ones break really easy. So I think going to a hardware store is your best bet, but dollar store ones are cheap. You're also going to need templates. Templates are 2 circles, 3-inch diameter and 5-inch diameter. And then there's a 7.5-inch or 6.5-inch tier drop flame template. These are for your spells and war machines. Not every army is going to need them. And if yours doesn't, then you can skip this, but you should need at least one of these things. So just basically try to get them. Again, GW sells these. They're also easy to get on eBay, used in your local community. This is like a $10 investment. You need it, just go get these. And you might need some cards. If you play older editions, they will need cards, usually in the form of magic spells and magic items. You can obviously find pictures of these and print them, but you can also just buy the cards. They're not too hard to get, but some of them are getting quite expensive. Oh, and tokens are kind of also important. Just something to mark units with is helpful because you might have put a spell on them, or they might be about to charge or start a combat with something that causes fear. Having a token just to remind you something is happening there is really helpful. That's also where cards come into play for 8th edition. 6th and 7th edition had no cards that I can recall, but 8th edition did use magic cards. These were not necessary at all, but they're very nice if you can get a hold of them because they tell you what spells are available in that lore, and you can then have it physically in front of you, the spells attached to each wizard, and it tells you on the card what the spell does. It just saves a bit of flipping through the books, and it's kind of worth it if you can get one, but they do get expensive. Then you need your army. It keeps coming up. This is obvious. Just dig it out of storage, buy a new one, print one, whatever. Hell, if you want to just print them on paper and stick them on bases, I've seen people do that too. Paper hammer is an option, as long as you can find people that will play with it or against it. Terrain is the last thing. You can go to stores and play, but people have lost their friendly local game stores as a result of COVID. And also, not all stores are going to cater to somebody playing a dead system. They might actually not even want you there. That's pretty rare, but I have seen people talk about this. You go to a store, you bring out something dead, whether it's Warhammer Fantasy, whether it's Battlefleet Gothic, or anything, and they say, I don't want you playing that here simply because I don't sell that product, which means that you, using my tables, that's my gift to you for buying from me, but it's also me marketing to people who come in and go, wow, that looks cool, except I can't sell this stuff to them. So they might not want that. Again, just check with people and see if they would be against you using their tables with something dead, but it's pretty rare. Just something to be aware of. And you also might be somebody who wants to play in private, or your opponents will be. So buying your own terrain can get expensive. I do suggest making whatever you can when you're first starting out, and buy what you need to when you want to. Sometimes it's better just to buy an MDF building, or a big plastic kit from GW. Sometimes you'll find a killer deal on eBay or Facebook Marketplace. Some older stuff. So basically just kind of take a peek, see what you can find. But terrain is definitely necessary. An empty battlefield is a bad battlefield. It's not fun. Supplements, I'm not going to go through all this. You can just read through it. This is just some information on what is available out there for each edition, as far as I know. I did not get into 1st to 4th edition just because I'm really not familiar with them. It would have just been me copying off like the Lexicanum page, and anybody can do that. So I didn't feel like wasting the space. But yeah, basically it's a lot of campaign books is what you'll find, and sometimes supplements like Magic and Siege, or Triumph and Treachery, Blood in the Badlands. Although I guess that's more of a campaign book. Storm of Magic. There's things out there. None of this is necessary. They're just nice to have in some cases, like General's Compendium. But the information is readily available on the internet. Not even like photocopies. Just people did put together updated FAQs and rules and stuff that you could download for different armies. And anything you might need from it is, again, easily available on the internet. The only thing to talk about here is the End Times. There were 5 books in the End Times series, and they included rules that changed up how you built your army. They added new rules for building Chaos and Skaven and Undead and Elf armies. People probably aren't going to want to play this unless you find people specifically interested in using those rules. Be really certain that the people you're playing with are okay with it before you spend a ton of money getting one of these books, and then finding out that that person is not interested at all in using End Times. Some people are bitter and just don't want to see them. Other people just say, okay, it's a different game. I don't want to play that version of it. It takes it back from Warhammer, as we saw it in 8th edition, back to more like 5th edition Hero Hammer, where you get a lot more points for heroes, and it changes up the way the game plays. So, and End Times, just be careful on. Be really sure somebody that you're playing with is okay with it. Old World. We basically know nothing other than some really basic information. It is going to continue to use square bases, is what they have told us. They've assured us. People are still, for some reason, saying it's not really going to, and it's a bait and switch. I don't know why, but whatever. They have said it's going to be square. They've also said 28mm, and that they want us to use our old armies. That's probably because old armies probably were already paid for to them. They will get us to buy something new when they put out a cool army, but a lot of people they know won't buy a new army, but they will buy new books. GW books are very expensive and make them a lot of money. So they're going to put out books for us, and they won't care if we all, for the most part, skip on a new army, even though they know we also won't skip on new armies. We're going to start new ones. So expect some books, but otherwise using your older stuff is going to be fine. The setting is now 200 years before the End Times, which means you're not going to worry about the End Times being involved whatsoever. And other than that, the only thing that's maybe of note is that the period of this is very different from what we are used to in like 6th to 8th edition. Some units would not be available because they haven't been invented or formed. That means that either those units will be gone, or GW will retcon the history, the lore, and just put them in. Really, I just think that's what they're going to do. They'll just say that, the colleges of magic in Altdorf were founded 100 years before what it says in the books we already own. Sorry, I've been teaching a bunch of young kids, so my throat is getting a lot more use talking than I'm used to the last few months being on vacation. Kislev is being developed as a range of models, and probably Grand Cathay as well, because if they've been in Total War, they have 8th edition rules. GW has gone and written 8th edition rules for every army that's in Total War that didn't have one. So that would probably, I assume, mean also Skaven, Beastmen, and Bretonnians have 8th edition books. Although the rumor is that at the very least, the Bretonnian book, was ready when the Old World was killed and Age of Sigmar was added, and basically they just said, don't even bother printing it because we're going to kill this stuff anyways. So yeah, basically there's a bunch of armies that don't exist right now in plastic ranges. They might exist like Chaos Dwarves in older metals. I guess it has some plastics too, but they don't have like proper modern plastics. They're like 5th edition or Forge World options only. So those guys have books somewhere, and we can probably expect them to come back to the plastic range as well. And yeah, this is really far away. Don't expect this for like at least a year, probably 2. And hopefully we get some more information soon. So yeah, I'm going to stop it there, and hopefully this helps you get some ideas of what you need to do to get started, and I'm going to do some more videos talking about pros and cons for each version of the game that I'm familiar with and are more popular, because I started around the time that a lot of people did, and there's still people, for the most part, people are playing those editions. And I'll get talking about the armies and what you can do with them and which units are still available and what you might have to go buy from third parties or print or whatever. And I'll break out my armies while I'm doing this so that I can also show off, you know, some painted product and see what a painted army looks like all ranked up. And yeah, basically, I hope you found this helpful. I hope it wasn't too long. And if you have any thoughts or comments, please leave them down below. You know, it's always nice to get to chat about these. And if my voice is a bit off, I do apologize. I'm trying to speak clearly, but it might be a bit hard at times because it has been a very long day with young kids, as I said, talking all the time, and I come home to my kids and my wife, and yeah, my throat's kind of used out and my mouth is dry. So sorry about that. Anyways, if you have any thoughts or questions, you can leave them down below. I'll do my best to get back to everybody quickly. And as always, everybody have a great day.